It's almost 11 at night in Norway, Sunday, July 19th. At MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, around 80,000 people are holding their breath. And then something happens that almost shouldn't be possible. Norway has won. The country that had waited 28 years just to return to the World Cup suddenly stands at the very top of world football. What happens now? Picture it. In bars across the US, Norwegian supporters who don't quite know what to do with themselves. Back in Norway, people running out into the streets, cheering at the top of their lungs, hugging strangers. Oslo's main street fills up within minutes. These are images from Oslo, when Norway beat Brazil in 1998. Within seconds, social media explodes. People who have never watched a football match in their lives are posting about the win. Norway's biggest news network switches to non-stop coverage. Every Norwegian newspaper drops its clickbait stories and changes its front page. In international media, the same question keeps popping up, phrased 100 different ways. How did Norway win the world's biggest sporting tournament? When France won the World Cup in 2018, around 300,000 people gathered on the Champs-Élysées. Germany in 2014 had over 400,000 at the Brandenburg Gate. Argentina in 2022 was so packed, the team bus couldn't get through the streets. The players had to be flown over the city by helicopter. Norway wouldn't look like Buenos Aires, Paris, or Berlin. But for Norway, it would be the same phenomenon. A day when the entire country wakes up and everything else gets put on hold. First, the FIFA money. $50 million goes directly to the Norwegian Football Federation. FIFA has also set aside $355 million for clubs that release players for the World Cup. So if Norwegian clubs have players in or around the squad, they'd feel the financial effect too. Then comes the part everyone can see. Norwegian jerseys would be flying off the shelves. When Germany won, and Adidas released the new version with 4 stars on the chest, it sold out within hours. When France won, only 30,000 2-star jerseys were ready after the final, while over 300,000 had already been pre-ordered. Argentina's jerseys sold out fast too. A jersey cost around $100 before the World Cup. In some cases, resale prices for their national team jerseys jump between 600 and 1900% after the win. Norway's jersey wouldn't just be supporter gear anymore. It would be proof that you were alive when Norway won the World Cup, a historic collector's item. And then there are the players themselves. Norway already has players the world knows well, but after a World Cup win, the ones almost no one outside Norway knows would suddenly become some of the most sought-after players on the planet. Enzo Fernandez came out of the 2022 World Cup as the tournament's best young player. Weeks later, Chelsea paid €121 million for him. James Rodriguez didn't even win the World Cup, but the tournament turned him into a global name, and he moved to Real Madrid for around €80 million. But the money isn't the most important part. What matters most is what it does to us. The world has already started paying attention to Norway. Erling Haaland set the Premier League record for most goals in a single season. Martin Ødegaard, captain of Arsenal, who won the Premier League. Bodø Glimt, a team from a city of 50,000 people north of the Arctic Circle, reached the Champions League and beat Inter, Manchester City, and Atletico Madrid. The national team's photos have gone viral. Their jerseys have been praised as some of the most beautiful in the world.
Is the Norway kit simply because it looks like they're just wrapped in their flag. Another reason why they're going to win it. Yeah. They're saying we're going to win it.
And the row chant from Norwegian supporters has been seen by millions. The world has already started watching. A World Cup title would make it impossible to look away. An entire generation of kids would grow up with the proof. When Germany won the World Cup in 2014, the German Football Association gained over 37,000 new members that year. More than 23,000 of them were children under 6. Norway already has hundreds of thousands of active football players. A World Cup win wouldn't start the football culture. It would detonate it. Kids would see it on screen, and they'd think, that could be me. And honestly, it's already begun. Right now, before Norway has won anything at all, the national team is on the front of countless products, on buses and airport trains. Kids are wearing the jersey of a player whose name they didn't even know a few weeks ago. If that's happening already, what happens if Norway actually wins? Lillehammer hosted the Winter Olympics in 1994. Over 30 years later, they still have the signage. The torchbearer symbol in the forest. They have even opened their own Olympic museum, an entire town that built its identity around one winter. Norway would still be fjords, skiing, oil, and salmon. But we'd also be something new, the country that won the world's biggest sporting tournament. But there's one thing every world champion learns. The hardest part isn't necessarily reaching the top. It's waking up the next day and realizing the top is now the bare minimum. 4 years after Germany won, they crashed out in the group stage, for the first time in Germany's World Cup history. FIFA called it a historic collapse. France won in 2018. In 2022, they made it all the way to the final and played 3-3 against Argentina, but lost the penalty shootout. That's about as close to perfect as it gets. But when you're world champion, almost isn't enough anymore. For Norway, this would be the dark side of the miracle. Before the World Cup title, just qualifying would have been a sensation. After the title, even a quarter-final exit could feel like a disappointment, and the pressure on the next generation grows, because they grow up with proof that Norway can win. And then the question is no longer if, but when again. A victory costs something. Still, no country has ever regretted it. A World Cup win wouldn't make Norway bigger on the world stage geopolitically, but it would make Norway bigger in people's imagination. First, it's just one match, then one goal. And after that, a country that can never quite pretend to be small again.